Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to have you here today because you have just been such a phenomenal client. And I just like literally have so many good things to say about you. I often reference you on the internet, like literally very often without saying your name, which you
How fun.
which you've probably noticed. One post you did reply about. But like because, and we're going to talk about it in the episode, just the way that I've seen you lead yourself in Fempire and the way that you leverage and utilize mentorship, your efficiency, just like so many different things that are just so incredible. You're like the client where it's like, sometimes you'd be like, is she still there? And then you come back and it's like all these insane things have happened and you've been listening and learning along the way. But like I always say, like, but you're not the one who, for example, leverages the Voxer chat the most. And also it's perfect when we do, you know what I mean? I'm never making anything right or wrong. I'm just going to be highlighting your style of learning. We all do it in different ways and it goes in different seasons. And I think it's just really interesting. So we'll get to that. But anyhow, I'm happy to have you here today because to celebrate your first 20K cash month in your business, like so fucking exciting. Your book that you wrote, just like all the cool things that have happened while you've been in Fempire. I feel like your transformation has just been like, it's just been wild. And I also think it's cool for us to have this moment because sometimes once you hit the quote unquote milestone, it's almost like you've forgotten how you were beforehand.
Yeah, totally.
And so it's also just cool to like revisit things and to really see like, oh, okay, this is how much I've grown. So before we get into all of that, could you please introduce yourself, what you do, where you live, your human design, your astrology, how you got into the work that you do, you know, all those kind of vibes.
I would gladly do that. Thank you so much, by the way. This is such a vibe already because I don't know whether anybody else listening ever has this experience, but like it's not always the case, like you say, that you get these moments to celebrate what's happening. So I just wanted to start by saying thank you. This is really a fun way to spend the afternoon. Well, afternoon here, morning for you. I'm Sara Dalrymple and I live in London. You can probably tell by my accent. And where should we start? Let's start with Aquarius, with like astrology things. So I'm an Aquarius sun. Pisces moon, Leo rising, and my human design is projector, 5-2 projector. Do with that what you will. And then business wise, I am a business mentor with a sharp focus on sales. I feel like selling is one of those things that so many people feel scared of or overwhelmed by. So it's very much my mission to help my clients feel really confident that selling is something that they know how to do, that they're doing in a way that they want to do it, and that basically they're not just kind of hiding their stuff from the internet because of, you know, sleazy stereotypes or just fake news about what it means to be a really great salesperson.
Fake news. I love that.
Well, you know.
I know.
I mean, I could just keep going. Shall I just keep going?
Yeah, keep going. Tell us, you know, what brought you into the work that you do, maybe a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. So I spent the first 12 years of my career in investment banking and finance. I worked in sales and marketing. I learned all the things about kind of big business, corporate ways to do things. And then I got married and had children. And at that time, it was really unflexible place to work. So for lots of different reasons, I decided that my time was, you know, I had the best experience, but it was time to move on. So I completely started from scratch and decided to retrain in something fully creative, became a photographer, built a photography business in terms of specifically weddings and headshots. And I really loved doing that. And I did it for 5 years. But then I started to kind of realize that, especially with my headshot sessions, I would come alive when my clients would be like, I mean, I would ask them how their business was going, and then they'd be like, but hang on, like it's really difficult to get clients, and it's really difficult to do the selling and the visibility thing. So the kind of headshot sessions just casually turned into kind of business mentoring sessions, which were much more about, oh, that's the easy bit, like this is what you have to do, this is what you have to say, this is how to do. So it kind of naturally just evolved back to sales and marketing things. And then I think I fully switched over in the pandemic. So 2020 happened and all my photography jobs obviously got parked, which was amazing because it gave me full kind of time and ability to consider what I wanted, how I was going to bring everything back round to business mentoring and selling. So that was in 2020. Alongside all the fun, like homeschooling young children and having everybody at home for like 9 months out of 12. But I felt really pleased to be able to pivot my business in that way. And since then, it's just been happy days in terms of the work that I've been doing. But, and I say but, I probably mean and, I came out of the pandemic experience with a really kind of renewed sense of wanting to move forward with much more intention around how I wanted my life to be, because that pandemic was, I'm sure I'm not the only one that found that experience like a real compression of my time, like the amount of time that I was spending, well, with my family in the nicest possible way, but also like it really revealed a load of blind spots for me around how I wanted to move forward in the world and the kind of spaces that I wanted to be in and the kind of work that I wanted to be doing. So it was a real melting pot of good experiences and bad, but coming out of it made me really committed to being in the rooms and the spaces and the kind of places that I wanted to be in to change things even more.
I love this. And so basically, for all intents and purposes, you started your business in 2020, and then like here we are celebrating your first 20K cash month in 2023. I mean, this is just incredible.
Yeah, so I think maybe what I should add in terms of like color or flavor to that experience was I like to keep things really simple, and I had very much gone in with a kind of one-to-one mindset. So I had built my business very much on the one-to-one model, because in that moment it felt like absolutely the easiest kind of way for me to go all in.
Well, it doesn't.
Right, that's the punchline. That's the punchline. Because I was like, I'm not really like, my appetite for kind of Facebook ads and all that stuff is not really that high, especially like I said, not with homeschooling, not with all the things. Let me just go all out with the one-on-one. So I've really built my business on one-to-one, is perhaps what I should have made clear. And it was really going well. I was full. I had so many clients, but I suddenly was like, hang on a minute. I am on calls all the time. I am on my screen all the time. I've barely got time to, once everything else is done in the house, I've barely got time to go outside. Like, I love to be in nature. I love to be outside. I love people. I love getting my energy like from being around people and like being in the world and having experiences. And I suddenly was like, oh my God, I've built a business where I can barely, catch a break in between sessions. So yeah, I mean, by 2022, last year, I was really feeling like some burnout situations, and also was just really like, okay, this was a moment where this had to be the, the way I was going to do it, but I'm not going to keep doing it like that. So then I was very much in the market for changing it up so that I could be free to get back outside again.
I mean, I understand, I spend like half the day outside. So then that naturally leads us into, so I am not sure how you found me. I'd be curious to know. And then also what brought you into my world?
Yeah. So I think I was thinking about this before this podcast, and I think it was that To Be Expanded. I think it was Lacey's podcast.
Oh my gosh, from years ago?
Yes, from years ago. But I'd really got into that stuff in the pandemic as well. And at some point or other, I must have stumbled across your episode, which I know is pretty old now.
Yeah.
But I was really in there listening to all those episodes, and I honestly can't recall.
And I didn't have a business then, so you wouldn't know that I was a business.
No, but I was coming back to, I genuinely must have seen something somewhere on the internet, and I was like, your name, like just I was like, I've definitely listened to your podcast episode, so I almost had this kind of sort of
recognition thing,
something somewhere. And then I remember finding you on Instagram, and I just immediately was like, oh yeah, okay, this is what I've been looking for. And you had I think it was Magnify, Manifest, Receive that you were promoting at that particular moment. And I remember, like, with my hat on of like, right, I know, you know, I have got a sales and marketing background, but I'm, you know, I was really aware that my kind of masculine side of things was probably more dominant than my feminine side of things. So I was really in the market to kind of understand energetics a bit better. And there you were with your perfect, you know, perfectly placed program for me at that time. So I remember jumping into that. And then I quickly jumped into Activated afterwards, which I think was like a week later, because I really remember asking you, like, oh, should I wait until I've finished this and then do that? And you were like, don't be ridiculous. I was like, yeah, you're right. I am
literally. I know.
Literally, I mean, I can still remember that happening. And that was at the end of last year. And I had it in my mind. I mean, yeah, I don't know, we'll probably get into this a bit more, but at that time I was like, I need a group thing and I need it to be spacious. And I think within like 3 days of our first week on Activated, the program was created. I'd sent one email out, a couple of people had bought it, and I just remember being like, that all happened in like 3 days. Imagine what's going to happen over like 6 months, 12 months, whatever. So it was fun.
And then Activated, because that's a limited time private offer I had going at the time. So it was 1 call a month and a week of Voxer a month. And so you were talking about what we'd been able to get done basically in like after a call.
We had a call. Let's say we had the call on like Tuesday, and then by Friday, like, you know, we'd obviously had our Voxer days, like maybe Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
By Friday, I'd sent, you know, we'd got to a place where the program was in motion and the spaces were filling, which just felt like energetically perfect for where I was at that moment and what I'd been kind of trudging through up until that point. So it just felt really fun, I would say, is the word.
And shows you how it doesn't have to take a long time, you know, and also like the power of being inside. Not that everything always moves exactly that fast, but the right mentorship spaces for us.
Exactly. And that was the thing. I really, it wasn't so much that I was like, I need a mentor who like ... It was more just like from an energetic perspective. I was like, oh, I really like this lady, because she is talking my language. She is talking about, you know, you were being outside, and there was all about the need for ease in that moment was real with a capital R. I was like, I want it to be easy. I want it to be fun. I want to get back into the world. I want to have experiences. I want to be around people. And even though you're in New York and I'm in London, I was like, this still feels like a space that is somewhere that I can be around someone who I can, you know, really enjoy learning from and working with.
And then I love that. And I think it was maybe after 1 month of Activated or 2, you basically decided to upgrade to Femmepire. And what was your thought process there? And now you've been in Femmepire. How long has it been? A year?
So that was, I think I joined Femmepire in December. I think it was November that I found you and started working with you. And I think in December, it was definitely before Christmas. Okay. Yeah, it was December. Let's just leave it there. Yeah. So it was
last December.
A couple of weeks. Yeah, last December. And I think it was almost like, okay, like I say, there was already this momentum that was created. And then I was like, hang on a minute, I really like being in group kind of spaces. And also I was like, I don't really want to wait until like next month when our next call I want to like continue the momentum throughout the month, which I probably didn't really know until I'd been through that process with you. But I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna I think I had invested in 6 months of Activated, so there would have still been another 5 months left. But I quickly realized I would prefer, and probably like I honestly can't remember whether I even knew about. I probably didn't know about Femmepire when I first jumped in, but also I, you know, probably wasn't feeling energetically ready to be there anyway, because I was like, oh, I need to get my program in motion. I get to get everything like back together. And then but as soon as that happened, I was like, no, this is actually an excellent place, because it's continuous, continuous mentorship, continuous support, other people. And I'm, hugely value and appreciate being in spaces where people are in motion, people are moving. I really believe in the power of being around other people who do things, that you're wanting to do. Certainly in my kind of day-to-day life, I don't really brush shoulders with too many other entrepreneurs. Like all my friends, either still work in corporate or you don't always get that level of awareness, understanding. So it really makes a huge difference to have a space to call your own for these particular conversations to happen, whether you're actively participating or observing or listening. Just being around them is huge, mega for me.
This is so cool. And so obviously, the way that you've leveraged Femmepire has been so cool. I mean, obviously you turn up to our calls and we have our private calls and like things like that, but you definitely observe a lot. Like I know that you'll listen to, even if you're not asking questions, you tend to listen to the answers that I leave for other people. And just, even if you can't make a call, you just catch the replay and you pop in when you need something. But it seems like you like to be a fly on the wall a lot of the time. And I think,
do.
And it was so funny because when you re-signed, I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is so interesting because of the way that you leverage the container. And someone else might be like, oh, I'm not getting my money's worth, and like not understand the value of learning through observation, which sometimes goes in seasons. Sometimes we plug in a lot and sometimes we're primarily observing. But I would really love to hear, because inside of all this time that you've been, I would say, predominantly observing, outside of like, you definitely come to our group calls, you definitely leverage our private calls, and I say you pop in with a question in Voxer like once a month.
Maybe like I would say a small handful of times, but do you know
2 or 3 times a month max. And I'm curious, but inside that, you had your first 20K cash month. You built a scalable business where we're not relying on private. You wrote a book. In 6 months. It's insane. Like so many things happened.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to talk to that. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I just want to say, like, for me, I love mentorship. I love, as I say, I love being in these places. I love having a mentor. I've always had a mentor. Even in corporate, I had a mentor, was a mentor. Mentoring is like the part of the deal. Whether or not I'm actively like knocking on the door every day with my daily musing or not, that's what a really important part of it, like having somewhere to go when you have the question, which is why I didn't want to just be an activator, because I was like, actually, well, how do I know when I'm going to have my questions? They might be on like the wrong week. But so yeah, I need to have that kind of contained area to go to, but it's not the only thing that I get from it by any means. Actually, like so much of the holistic experience, if you like, if I think about what it is that I love so much about being there, it's more than like what I'm personally requiring on any given day. It's actually much more about like feeling part of something bigger than just me and what I'm doing. And also, like, another thing that really kind of attracted me in the first place, or continues to like inspire, motivate me, is the fact that like you started your business in like basically 2020, or maybe a bit, I can't remember, but like not so different in terms of time frames, but you are like moving and you are going and you are doing it with ease, and you are being outside and like doing all the things. And I really feel like, from a role modeling perspective, like there aren't that many people that I have come across that are just getting it done in this way. So like from that perspective, from an observation, if we're talking about observation, like so much of it is about like, I think we have all got loads of role models that will show us like how to climb that corporate ladder, or how to like, I don't know, like do motherhood, or how to XYZ, but they're really usually like underpinned by a level of like boxing in, or a certain element of making it hard, or understanding that it should be hard, or I don't know. I think
this is just the way that it is, and kind of acclimating you to this is just the way that it is.
This is the way it is, and like don't question it, just kind of go with it. And here all of a sudden you are like blazing this new path, which I think lots of people love the idea of, but aren't necessarily like furnished with, you know, hundreds of thousands of women before them who have done exactly that. So from the perspective of like, I mean, even if you think about like when you decide like what to watch on TV or what to go and see at the theatre or whatever, you want to see something that's like a whole experience that you're not always actively participating in. You're often watching it because it's something that you get some kind of feeling from. So to me, like being able to have like a really sort of front row seat to what I consider to be like the hottest, I don't know, like ticket in town or show around, it's like, I'm not going to get that anywhere else. I can't just tune into Netflix and be like, where's the show where you find the person who's got common ground with you, but it's just doing something like so revelationary in terms of like the way that you, I mean, the way that we were brought up. One thing I haven't said is like from an upbringing perspective, my dad's Lebanese. He's like an immigrant from Lebanon. So I came across from Beirut in the 70s. So like the vibe in terms of our house was like education, qualifications, get a like reliable, steady job. And I did all those things. And then I got there and I was like, this isn't serving me at all. There's no flexibility here. Like, what about now that I've got these kids? Like, what, I've got to just pay some nanny to look after them because I have to be at work at 7 o'clock and I have to stay there all day. So that version of, in terms of role modeling, like it didn't really, first of all, everyone was like, yeah, it's really hard, work hard, be successful, but it's hard. And then when I did that, I was like, yeah, but it's not even what I want. So now I need a new like paradigm to exist in. And of course I'm in motion and I'm doing all of that anyway, but being in a place where I can, you know, ask you my questions, but also like way more importantly, watch you do it, it means like there's almost like less need for questions because I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm watching your programs, I'm like in your master classes, behind the scenes, like as you say, I've been writing this book, I've created my a mastermind, a signature program, a smaller program. There's all this other stuff that's been going on. So yeah, when I've got a question, I'm obviously going to ask it to you, but that's actually just one relatively small piece of the whole experience of hearing other people at their points in the journey, learning from those, obviously watching what you're doing and, you know, mulling it over. But I think just thinking about like, well, if I'm not asking questions, there's no point me being there is like just such a, I don't know, tunnel vision version of looking at why to be in a mastermind. And that's just not really the only reason I'm there.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm curious what you feel too, because it's exactly what you said, that front row seat. And I don't know that everybody understands that, because I'm like, you don't have a front row seat from what you see on social media. That is not the front row seat, right? When people are like, oh, I can see what someone's doing because I see them on the internet. I'm like, that ain't it, right? You've got to understand from behind the scenes, the workings and the reasoning and the why. And I'd love to hear how that's been like valuable to you. And obviously you're in all my programs, you're in my master classes, like you're deep in my world. And I'd just love to hear how that access to like how I do things, not just what lines up on the internet, but what's going on behind it, like the why, the planning, what it is, how it's evolved, like all those different things, how that supported you.
Yeah, I think it basically just allows me to just jump a load of steps that I otherwise would probably be like, okay, now first I've got to do this, and then I've got to, not to say that you're prescribed, you know, this is not like a prescriptive model, obviously, but just by virtue of the conversations that are always happening in Voxer, whether or not I've asked the question or someone else has asked the question, 9 times out of 10, the question that I would have asked is already asked before I got there anyway. So then it's like, oh yeah, this was what I was going to ask. But just the sort of 360-degree transparency with which you share so openly around, I mean, literally everything from, I don't know, like what systems you're using or not using, or what how you're actually promoting things, or the kind of emails that you send, or what the rationale behind the way that you structure your pricing, or the kind of boundaries that you set, or the reason why you set certain boundaries in certain ways, the difference between like in terms of like proximity and different things. Literally every element of business is there, of course, but also from like a human perspective, it's like it's not like you're just like, well, you can't ask me that because that's outside of the realms of this mastermind. Everything's available to be kind of unpicked or questioned. So that's probably a bit of a vague answer, but to me it's literally like we're all humans in this experience of creating businesses that work for us. Obviously there's no right or wrong way of doing it, you know, in terms of for everybody in there. Everyone's got to find their own way, and the only way we're going to do that is by being able to see what you're doing, what they're doing, what's working, what's not working, and actually being in the game. Which is why, as I say, like it's been really important for me to be like creating things and running them in parallel to being there, rather than like, oh, what should I do now? Like, what, yeah, I've got this program, like what's next? I'm going to be creating that stuff anyway, but I'd like to be doing it alongside the parallel of watching what you're doing and listening to conversations that really always kind of matter wherever you are in the journey. So I think, yeah, I just couldn't possibly pinpoint it to like one distinct point, but I think it's just the fact that you kind of wake. It's also kind of a bit like being in some kind of like, I don't know, like some kind of show where you can just like dip into it, like listen to what's happening, like while you're going around, like doing your stuff. So it's kind of like a cross between something that you're participating in, something that you're watching, but something that's always relevant to what you need on any given day. It's like some kind of weird voodoo stuff. I don't know. It's
weird voodoo stuff.
So yeah, I mean,
I think we call that alignment with the space.
I think there's something about the time lag as well that's like, yeah, I don't know, like the timing just always matches up.
Yeah. But that's our energetic alignment, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Where it's just like things just sync, and it's so cool. And I just like, I absolutely froth that answer. And it's just been so potent, because think about the amount of time, right, where you're like, oh my God, doing one-on-one, grinding, going. And then all of a sudden it's like you put yourself in the right room, and all of a sudden we have multiple programs. We're running master classes. You sold out your first mastermind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was so cool. Remember how you were scared to have a mastermind?
I really remember. Of course I do, because it was only like 3 months before. I mean, the whole thing is like, that's the pace that gets to change, which obviously I'm so here for. But it is amazing how when I think, you know, like we say, like when you think back on 2023, I one of the main reasons why I wanted to be here like longish term, you know what I mean, 6 months, 12 months, whatever, I didn't really know at the time, but I knew that I was walking into 2023 with a book that needed to get written already around like a life that is full of really amazing things. And I just know I work better when I have some space where I can go to just focus on business things. So without having Femmepire here in 2023 with me, I just can't imagine how much easier it would have been for me to slow down on that side of things. And I just knew I didn't want to do that. I knew 2023 was like the year that I wanted to build my recurring revenue, build my business to allow for a lot more ease. And as I say, like that intention around what I wanted it to be like, because building my business this way in the pandemic, it was amazing that it blew up in terms of one-on-one stuff. But like we say, like we've already talked about, I quickly realized like that wasn't the kind of business that I wanted. So then I was like, well, I know what kind of business I want. I have to do it, even if it's going to be a busy, full, vibrant year, because they're always busy, full, vibrant years. So it does feel even more amazing to be able to be here in August thinking we still have more than plenty of the year left to go. And I've written my book now. So like where I was feeling like my capacity was down to like maybe 20% of what it normally would be, just because of the book writing experience being reasonably full. It feels really nice to be able to look back and go, at the same time as I was birthing my book, I was also rebuilding, you know, building my business, which now genuinely does allow for all the things I wanted it to in terms of space and, you know, pondering time and generally just living.
And one of the other things that you celebrated that I'm always preaching about is recurring income. And so you didn't really have recurring income in your business
really
previously. Didn't. And people, it's like the most liberating thing in the world. And I would love for everyone to understand this. There is no big consistent money without big consistent recurring income. The higher your months that are done in a sustainable, scalable, repeatable way, the higher the recurring income. And this is just so important. And one of these like structural pieces that is so important to anchor. And I remember like we were celebrating in the Voxer chat at one point and you're like, oh my God, like I have reoccurring income now.
Yeah. And that was really early on. And
from like a variety of places. Reoccurring income to me is not one private client on a payment plan, right?
No,
it's like
exactly.
these things coming in from a variety of places and you had an experience. And then as we evolve, that gets more systemized and structured and predictable, et cetera. But like first you needed to even open the door and you've done that. And I would love to just, you know, hear about that because it's such an important piece.
It's such an important piece. And I just cannot even tell you, like, from the perspective of coming out of a season of life that felt really, I don't know what the word is, maybe like, yeah, maybe precarious or something. I don't know, like business was good, but I'd really hit my capacity. Like, so I was like, maybe at 10 to 15K months, there was an abundance of work, but I didn't have abundant capacity to do the work. So I was like, how on earth am I going to sustain this when I'm so tired just from doing this amount? So I really want to.
How are you going to grow?
Exactly.
If you're at 10K months and you're exhausted, how are we gonna, like, what's happening here?
I was like, I really, but this is the thing, like, it wasn't such a conscious thing. It was like, it's the pandemic, perfect timing to crack on with this mentoring as I wanted to do. But before I was so fully booked with photography clients, I just didn't really have the headspace. And then I was like, great, perfect. What headspace I have, I'll focus on mentoring. We'll go all in, we'll do it. But it just quickly outgrew my ability to service it, if you see what I mean. And I just really remember thinking like, yes, obviously I want to continue to grow and scale, but more importantly, I think it's like, this is a long-term plan for me. This is not like, oh, I'll just do this for now and then see what happens later. Like, I love working for myself. I love having my own business. I love everything about like entrepreneurship. So I was like, how on earth am I going to sustain this long term if I'm like finding, you know, crumblings of burnout coming my way already? Like, this is not the vibe. This is not a long-term situation. So,
or for like one private client not re-signing, heavily impacting your income.
Right, there's that as well.
Like, no thank you. Yeah,
no thank you. Also, just like, where is, like, I've already been working my ass off. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I swear or not. I've already worked.
You know that I swear on my podcast.
Well, just slipped out. Yeah, I've already been working so hard. Like, I'm as in corporate, in like all those long hours that I pulled there. This is not what I necessarily envisaged. This is not how I want this to be. Like, I'm 42 right now. I do not want to spend like, I want my 40s to be about, you know, like I say, living and looking after myself and wellness and all of the things, not just like working, productivity all the time. So there needs to be space. There's no space. So yes, it was about recurring revenue, but I don't think I'd necessarily placed the words around. I was more like, I need some space, I need some breathing space, I need some chill time. But what I now realize is like, that's how you get the chill time. You obviously structure your business so that the revenue carries you through, and there's plenty of time for it all anyway when it's structured so differently. So yeah,
and also, even if you have a month where for whatever reason there's not as many sales, your income isn't roller coastering because of your recurring revenue.
The base level of stability just is the biggest sort of shoulder drop experience I can describe, because I don't know, like, I'm a pretty like positive, fun kind of person, but like, I always, at the back of my mind, I'm wanting to build a business that does not solely rely on me being like, showing, you know, yes, I'm the first one to say we need to be promoting, and sales skills are obviously so important. That's like the whole like heart of my business. But there's always going to be life moments where we just either can't be there or don't want to be there or need to take a step back. So I don't want to build a business that only relies, you know, I'd never wanted that. So the other really important piece of recurring revenue is like, it brings you that safeness, that's not a word, you know, stability, to just not feel that you've got to always, you know, the business still exists without you constantly
like pushing.
There needs to be the natural rhythm of life, and your business has to work with that, rather than like, if you're not there, the business is not there. And I think
And this is why I say we don't have a sustainable, scalable business if you having a few less sales in a month is causing a roller coaster.
Right. Like if you're
dip.
ill and you need to have like some time off or something happens in your life, you can't be then thinking, oh, but I've got to just, you know, do my business things, because that's not what most of us are building businesses to enable. We're building businesses to actually live our lives. So I want like a weatherproof, bulletproof, economy proof business that works whether or not I am like firing on all cylinders 365 days of the year. And I don't think that's necessarily something that everybody thinks about from day one. I think lots of people are like, well, let's just start and see what happens. But it would, you know, if we could have this conversation about recurring revenue more at all stages, we would probably protect a lot of business owners from burning out and from thinking they can't do it, or like moving on to something else because it wasn't working or whatever.
This is so cool. And I agree with you 100%. And could you share like what it's been like as well? Because we've heard so much about, you know, what it's just been like being in the space and having that front row seat to my behind the scenes, how I mentor other people, like our energetic alignment in terms of like, it just always happens to be the questions you have are being answered. Like the universe is our friend. And I would love to hear like what it's been like for you also just being mentored by me, because you pretty much came into my world and moved very quickly into close proximity. You weren't someone who'd been in like 6,000 different programs, et cetera, or like, I'm sure you listened to the podcast. You didn't come across to me when you came to invest, like you'd been lurking for months. It seemed like you like, you moved fast.
I don't even think it was a week. I just don't think it was. I think I was like, I know what I'm looking for, and this is it. So here we go. It just like, really like over ruminate on this stuff. I think when you know, you just know, which is obviously why it's so important that, you know, things are readily available as they were. But from a mentorship perspective, I think like, well, from your mentoring style is so like flexible and all accommodating. I can't say it. Accommodating. Put my teeth in. That I think that's another reason why it's so nice to have like your mentoring for everyone at every different stage. But from my perspective, I feel like you just always know what's really going on, like whether or not the person is saying like this is really the thing or not. Like you have got just such a skill for being able to like really see the person that you're talking to right from the very beginning. I would say that's true, like right from the very first week, where like you say, we did not know each other. I don't even think I've been following you on Instagram for longer than a few days. My biggest thing at the beginning was like, there's a lot here, like which is the right thing for me, you know? So it was really just a shopping experience rather than let me get to know more. I think the mentoring that I have received from you has been direct, to the point, no fluff, which is exactly how I like it.
I'm all about that. Let's just get to the point. And something you shared as well is like also just having that space, because in Femmepire, this is available where it's like, bring life, bring business, bring your relationships, bring what's going on with you and yourself. Like life and business are woven together so much so, right? And while, you know, I might have other spaces or in a program, obviously, like the questions that are being answered are specifically around the program. But when you come into you know, I don't want to be like all inclusive, but you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it is kind of like, yeah, it's like roll out the red carpet, but it's a little bit, isn't it?
That's way better than all inclusive. Which kind of vacation are we going on, you know?
Well, yeah, exactly. The fast track line, please. I don't want to be in that long queue.
Exactly. So yeah, I just love that you said that, because that was my intention all along, is like, I understand what it looks like to step into these higher cash months, to be the person who has them, to sustain them. Like I've walked it, obviously, right? Over and over and over again, at all of these different levels. And I'm like, this is an all-encompassing experience, right? So we want to be in the programs. And I'd love to chat about this too, because I think that when people hear things like this, they get very confused, thinking that like, oh, you know, close proximity is like the secret sauce. And like, that must mean, but they don't understand that like, we need to maintain the value of investing in our programs and masterclasses, or when you're in spaces where they're included in close proximity, actually doing that work. Like I am diligently inside my mentors, programs, masterclasses, et cetera, And it's like when you actually do both, it contributes to your experience. So I never want anyone to think, I'm never saying close proximity or this. I'm like, you need to do it all. And I feel like you're someone where, you know, you shared so much about how you engage in Femmepire, but also you're very on top of like my programs and masterclasses and the other things in my world.
Yeah, this is true. And this is kind of what I mean about there's always something to be like watching, learning from, working through, implementing, considering. And I think like, because like you say, you have walked this path relatively quickly, I think that keeps you really fresh. I can't imagine like if it took you 10 years or something to like arrive at this point, like you might not remember what it was like at this, you know, at the state in like individual stages that your clients are at, but because you have this like breadth of experience that's come relatively quickly, you remember everything. You remember like, this is what I was doing at this point, this is how I felt, oh my god, I remember like when I had this moment, it was so great, which is makes you an excellent sort of celebrator of things as well, because you haven't forgotten each sort of step in the journey is a big deal, regardless of like the numbers or whatever the breakthrough or the thing. So the other thing I want to add to that, I mean, yeah, we have to do it all, because if you would, I suppose when I was in Activated, I was just in the close proximity space, right? I didn't have the full catalogue of things to go and look at. So I can really compare the two, albeit I was only in there for a week, but you know.
Yeah. Well, because my all-in private mentorship has all the programs and masterclasses, et cetera, et cetera. So this was like a, you know, a different version.
This was a different promotion type thing. But the observation that I have around this is that every time, especially at this stage where you have so many programs and masterclasses and things, every time I think like, oh, this is an area that I really want to consider a bit more or strengthen or freshen up or whatever, there's always something that you've created that is exactly for that purpose, which I suppose also takes away what would otherwise be a question for the Voxer chat, which
6,000 questions in the Voxer chat. Yeah,
right, which wouldn't be so dynamic if everybody was just asking questions about like, oh, what about this? Like, it's great that you have, well, whether or not you have to actually go, oh, you can just go over here. Most of the time you don't even need to direct us, because we can just have a look for ourselves and it's all so clear. But I would say the ability to move faster is 100% easier by virtue of just being like, okay, here, you know, I'm going to go into this program, I'm going to listen to this module, I'm going to consider it, and then if I've got some questions, I'm going to put it in the Voxer, and then we're going to have a chat about it, and that's going to be lovely, rather than like, oh, I don't know what I need, like let's go and talk it out in Voxer to the answer. So it makes for a much pacier and dynamic and momentum fueled progression, if that's the word.
I love it. This is what I'm here for, the efficiency. So good.
Efficiency. Of course, we love a bit of efficiency. Yes.
And it's so interesting you bring this up, because nobody ever plugs in and is like, where should I watch this? But like, you guys all figure it out. You know what I mean? And if you did, I would answer. Or sometimes something comes up and I'm like, ooh, if you want to take this deeper, I would go check this out. But it's also interesting because now that you said that, when I think about, because now, you know, I've been running Femmepire since May of last year, there's not really been this overwhelming number of like questions around where to find what, you know what I mean? Everybody's just like got it sorted.
Yeah.
Which also I intentionally intend to make things very clear.
And also you talk about them a lot in other places. Like you're probably talking about half of it on social media or via email. So I think some of that comes through just through being in your world, whether or not you've invested in close proximity.
Well, we love that. That's marketing, baby.
Right, of course. But my point, I mean, the other thing I want to say here is that through virtue of the product suite that you have and the, you know, ability to have conversations in Voxer, it is also a really amazing place to get things mirrored back to you. Or to, I would say the other piece that I didn't mention before about your mentoring style is that you've been really articulately able to reflect things back to me, us, the group, about our own style, our own way of working, and kind of those points that we can really own in our own businesses that I don't know if I would have got so quickly if it hadn't been for your mentoring. So thank you for that as well.
And it's also the beauty of these long-term relationships where I know you so well, right? I know you so well. I know your business well. And I would say that like, I'm already just strong at seeing people. So even from the beginning, it will likely feel like I know you well, because That's kind of my personality.
That's true. And like having had a lot of other mentoring is always great and you always get something from it. But what I don't always get is this feeling of being seen in the, to the extent that you can allow people to feel. And that's a really nice thing for somebody who also is like very much relationship focused people person. I think it's another really, well, I don't know if it's unique, but like a really important element of this experience is actually having somebody who is going to see you as an individual and is absolutely going to, well, call you out when necessary, but also like celebrate the individual points where necessary too. So this is not something that is to be taken for granted, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's really important to me. And this is again why I love my space and my close proximity, is like, because I actually like care about people's like individual experiences, their life and their individual business. Like I'm the mentor who knows the name of your programs. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, and a lot, I'm going to own and say that's hard to find.
100%.
Because I've been in a lot of mentorship. They have no idea what you're like. They'll answer the questions, et cetera. And that's very relevant, but it's kind of on you. And I'm not talking about like no one in Fempire has asked me to quote unquote save their business, but it's like, I bring the intentionality of actually knowing your business.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And really that is such a, that's such a lovely frequency to exist within for the time that you're in this close proximity experience, because you never feel like you have to start by saying, hey, remember this program I created? It's called this. Can we talk about it? Like that is just not on the table. It's like, that's not going through my mind ever, that you don't even know what's being promoted or
what
what's
you're doing.
created.
Yeah.
Which is why it is so nice that it's, a nice intimate space. It's not a gigantic mastermind
like
for
30 people in the mastermind. Yeah.
So yeah, that's very excellent too.
I just love this. And how did it feel having not only your first 20K cash month, but alongside, I mean, actually, before I go there, I'm going to share too, is like something else that's been really cool to witness with you is the expansion in your capacity, because you went from, okay, I'm going to have majority private clients pool, I'm having about 10K months, great, to like, you basically like you really collapsed time on building a sustainable business to where even before you had re-signed in Fempire, so you came in for 6 months and then you re-signed a couple months ago for another 6. But it's like in that short amount of time, all of a sudden, literally, you had group programs, you had a mastermind, you were doing some private, you were doing master classes, like your content, like I would love to chat about your content, like your content like completely changed, at least from my observation.
Yeah,
I'm like, we're at a 10 now, like everything just, it's so funny because you came in for ease and then cool. It was also like, you wrote a book, like there's so much, your capacity expanded so greatly. And like every aspect, you hired team, like every aspect of your business became like solid as fuck. And like, we were doing all that just in the first 6 months.
Yeah, right. That's
before you re-signed.
Before I resigned, yeah. So exactly that. I really feel like now this literally the sky's the limit, because, and to your point about content, let's talk about that for a second, because it's crazy, but at some point since November last year to when I re-signed in Femmepire, which I think was in May, and this, again, is virtue of like being in your world and watching what you're doing, but like I realized the other thing that I didn't really have, wasn't really hearing the conversation around as much as I wanted to, was the importance of actually your own thoughts, which I know is probably absolutely ridiculous. But what I mean by that is I think I was still outsourcing more of how I should be doing things than I realized, or than I recognized before I came into your world. I think I was still very much listening to this concept that things should, even in entrepreneurship, is the opposite of entrepreneurship. It's actually kind of cringe to be admitting this, but here we are. I think I was in previous mentorship experiences, like watching and learning and sort of almost thinking, well, never mind what I think, because I'm, maybe just a bit newer at this, so I'm gonna, whereas now I very much feel like I have to share what I think about this. And it's almost like these thoughts were always here, I just didn't have the space. I didn't have the space, head space, physical space space in my business anywhere to let them out, and I was like deprioritizing them because I know it's much more important that I do XYZ. Whereas now,
well, how would I talk about following the formula instead of like, you are the fucking formula,
exactly. But
yeah,
to actually like I really want to celebrate your, just the fact that you're having this conversation always. I don't think, I mean, I could really go back and be like, I do not remember at any point in my life anyone making this abundantly clear thing as abundantly clear as it should be made. It's that whole thing of like the systems that we grow up in. I don't want to go like too, patriarchy, feminism vibes here, but I will say, like, you're taught always to like almost not have your own not to have too many of your own thoughts, or that they might not be accepted, or judgment, or risk, or stay with the pack, I realized that all of that stuff, even though I thought I am very much someone with my own opinions, I wasn't using them, is the point. I wasn't using them in my business, which is just absolutely crazy to me now. But yeah, in terms of content, like the difference is that now I'm actually saying what I think, and before I wasn't. So it's not really a surprise that there's been, that's easier now, because of course it's easier to say what you think than try to figure out what you think you should think.
But a lot of people come into business and entrepreneurship not exploring that because they're so busy. A lot of business coaching can be quite prescriptive, and they're so busy making sure they follow the script that like there's no human to actually really be attracted to. So like, yeah, you can make some money following the script. But like when we're talking about like big money, you being known, legacy vibes, like that ain't it. Like so
right,
much of what I talked
ease.
about and how to shit on the internet.
Yeah, but also from an ease perspective, like
there's that. Yeah,
easier. It's so much easier to just do you. I mean, yeah, I think for probably more than just me, like it's not so much that I wasn't sharing to the full extent is I think probably more realistic. And actually this is the first experience I've had of like routinely listening to this conversation over and over again and being like, of course, like how we are just playing into the system if we are not actually knowing what we think, saying what we think, articulating what we think, getting really good at what we think and sharing it. So
and we're blocking the growth of our business. We're playing into the system. Like,
it's crazy. Yeah, exactly. I don't think I went into this thinking that was the case, but that's definitely one of the biggest blind spots that I have like seen and worked to make sure I shift to the side.
And then I'd love to hear too, because we talked about, and I feel like I have this beautiful dance personally, and this is part I own about myself, where it's like have a very clear understanding of business strategy and structure and mentoring to someone around their particular business when it comes to that. But I'm also not the mentor where I'm like, you 1000% must do these things, have these exact things in place, and everybody's business has got to run like this for you to be successful. And so what has been like, I don't remember when like Isabella was in the mastermind, she was on the podcast, she had her first 40K month and she only does self-paced work, right? Whereas I have someone else like you who's doing private, who's doing masterminds, who's doing all of it, right? And it's like, we all get to be different and get there. And like, I do believe one of my skill sets is being able to genuinely see someone, see their frequency, see their strong suit, and like, let's tailor your business to that. I've always been about like, I'll show you the way, I'll show you what I did, I'll show you the options. I just have a strong brain for business and clearly background before I even started this business. But it's not a prescription. And I feel like there's a lot of like prescriptive, like mentorship. And I don't think, and like for some people, maybe that's perfect, but I feel that usually people find when they're desiring to step into bigger numbers that like it can feel limiting, but rather it's like, to me, it's like, let's just choose from the menu instead of like, here's the one prescription. And I'm wondering how it's felt for you, because I feel like there could be the person who's like, oh, but I'm confused if there's not a prescription. And then there's the person who's like, no, fuck that, I don't want that. But also they don't want to feel like the menu is so fucking infinite that there's confusion. And I don't feel like there's a lot of confusion in my spaces, like in my close proximity spaces. And like, I would just love to hear your experience. Do you know what I mean? That dance between like, it's not a prescription, but also we're going in a direction, like very clearly.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Because when I think back on like previous as I say, like previous mentoring has always been great too. But what I haven't had is this, like individualized tailoring. It's almost, I think I'll go as far as to say, like in your mentoring, it's almost irrelevant what way you want to do it. That's not the thing. Whereas actually in lots of other spaces, and I think coming back to what we were just talking about, these two things are linked. If you have somebody going, this is how you must do things, and that's your focus, that's the primary focus of the space, there isn't really too much focus then on individual personalities, business styles, aspirations. Like, it's not everybody's aspiration to have exactly the same business as somebody else's, of course. So it's really important to almost take that off the table. Like you say, of course, you don't want to be confused, like, oh, but where should I start? What should I do? But you're, as you say, the dance of like knowing the individual and understanding where they are and what they're building and how they want to build it and their whole life, you know, situ, means that I've never heard you say, oh, you should be doing it like this to anybody. And that's the whole point. It wouldn't work if you were, because then people would be like, actually, this doesn't feel aligned, or it doesn't feel that easy for me in the same way that it does for you, because I'm not that kind of person, or I don't really like loads. So I think that's another thing about, like, when I say about how I started in one-to-one, because I was like, for me, that's easy. I understand it. I know that I love the relation, you know, the longer term relationship vibe. But when I started getting mentorship around other options, I quickly fell into a loop of like, oh God, no, I don't want to do like all these Facebook ads and like complicated launch things, and which people were very much like, you must do, if you want to have recurring revenue or scale online or whatever, you must have XYZ, which just is such a turn off. So all that to say, from you, nobody's ever going to get like, you've got to do it like that, it's my way or the highway, which is huge, because it allows people to then find out who they are, like what it is that they want, what they want to like. And you're obviously always on this, there's always new things coming out that people can observe and watch and think, actually, this looks excellent for me, I'm into it, I'm going to have a go at this, but without any pressury like, oi, why aren't you doing this yet? Or what on earth are you doing over there going rogue? Do you know what I mean? Like, imagine,
I know exactly what you mean.
Mistress going, you're not doing what I said. Like, that would be crazy. That just wouldn't be that's not the vibe. The point is, like, we're all trying to build our own businesses that work for us. And there's always a way to do that, like you say, and it's nothing to do with, you know, doing it like anybody else. It's just about figuring out what you need and what you love.
And I always say, I've never had two clients who run their business exactly the same way or exactly like me. I've never had a mentor who runs their business exactly like me. And it's like, if you cannot help people get to their individualized business, like in a way, and like, you know, where it's like, it can grow, it's scalable, it's sustainable, it suits their energy, it suits their personality, it suits their preferences, like all these different things. And that doesn't mean that certain stages don't feel more challenging, right? Like, there was, okay, for you, like, whoo, okay, I'm going to do the mastermind, even though I'm scared. Like, this isn't to mean that like, there's no moments, right, where we have these little birth canal moments. We like, sometimes we hear things, we hear a blind spot, and it is like, whoo, okay. Although I will give you a lot of credit. I feel like you're very, well, actually, I'll finish, but it's like, if we can't help people get there, why are we business coaching?
Exactly.
Like,
it
honestly,
can't be one way. And honestly, like, for somebody else, like the one-to-one model could be perfect. You know, somebody else is perfect for that because that's all they want, and they've got loads of capacity and they're never going to get tired of it. Somebody doesn't want to like be roaming about in the woods, fine, but I do, so that's not going to work for me. So I got to work out what does work for me, and that's where we are.
I know, but I've never seen anyone not burn out on loads of one-on-one. Never seen it. So yeah. So this is just amazing. And then, what was I going to say? And then also just to hear, it's like, it's not confusing too, because I also will always share. It's like, okay, well, this is the outcome. Like, these are different ways to get there. It's not, and this is what I do, and this is why. Like, it's so important to me not only to share what I do. And like you said, I will like tell you, if you ask me any question, I will absolutely answer it. I'm not like keeping cards close to the chest. I would say it's like, obviously my close proximity where you get the most of me. Clearly, that's why it's close proximity. But it's like, I really love to share why I'm doing things, and basically that concept of like teaching you to fish, not just teaching you how to do the thing, you understanding why, so that, because that's real learning.
That's real learning. Exactly. And also like why in your world something is done that way, rather, you know, because again, it's not like a uniform why situation. It's just like, I need you to know why I'm doing it so that you can understand if you would or wouldn't want to do that too.
Yeah.
So full transparency all the way.
This is so cool. Thank you, Sarah. So if there's anyone, oh my gosh, we almost said it real quick because I know you got it at end time. Can you please share for everyone what it was like just having your first 20K cash month from such a deep place of ease and alignment?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. It almost felt honestly like it was really, it was an emotional moment because it really married up with, as I say, probably the most vibrant time of my life. So this was not like 20K when I had like literally nothing else to do. This was 20K and I wrote my book and I did all the things, and it felt the perfect people came in. It felt aligned, it felt easeful. It's an absolute dream to run. So like, it's so much more than the financial milestone, which of course is lovely, but I think for me, like, the main thing is like, I have so much space to do all this other stuff and still have space just for me. That is such a game changer. And that's literally been just like a little bit over 6 months since being in a place of like, oh my gosh, my calendar is full, I am a bit tired, how on earth am I going to write this book and grow? And I've done both of those things, so that feels really fun. And also I am having fun is the other thing. I am not like pushing, which I would never want to be in a state of doing. So
and can you share too, it's like in terms of the time, like you've gotten yourself to a place of efficiency where you're like, yeah, I can like get on social media for 30 minutes a day if I want to and call it a day.
Exactly. Yeah, really just taking ownership of the idea that like, if that's what I've got, that's what's happening. Like, there's no rule around this. Like, let's just stop pretending we're influencers, as I say. Like, there's no upside really to like making sure social media has got 6 hours of your day. That makes no sense. Like, people have other stuff to do, whether they're on the kind of creating end or the consuming end. So let's just get a little bit sharper and go.
1000%. So if anybody is interested in coming into Femmepire or playing anywhere else in my world, but hasn't yet made the move, what would you have to say?
Oh my goodness. I would say do not hesitate. And also like it can, and I really remember this feeling of like, there's a lot, you have a lot of options, which is a great thing. But if you're ever thinking like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm right for this space, or maybe it's too early for me to be in Fempire. Like for me, for like a nanosecond, I was like, oh, I can see you're talking about like people who are desiring to be in like 30 to 100K months.
No, but you're almost there now.
I'm not there yet, so maybe I should hang out and wait. If I had hung out and wait, there's just no way like any of my year would have looked like this. It would still be feeling like a completely different world. So all I can say from that perspective is you have to know what you're ready for and just go for it, because it's
not always based on exactly how much money you're making, right? Like you were like, oh, she's talking to these people, but here you are very close to having 30K months. It will definitely be happening, in these next 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. Like I genuinely know that now, and I just couldn't necessarily have said, I wouldn't have known where the space was going to come from before. But now I'm like, if I can write a book and like be a mother and be a wife and run around outside every day and not really have plenty of space left over, of course I'm going to do that now. Like, of course that's the first time, like hand on heart, that I could really see that happening without blowing my system out.
Because now we have a sustainable, scalable business.
Yeah. So I would say just do not hesitate is the headline.
Do not hesitate is the headline of the show. I mean, truly, the show of life. Do not hesitate.
Yeah.
So if anyone would like to, thank you so much. This has just been such a beautiful chat. I have the best fucking clients. Honestly, I love these episodes so much. Like they're so fun. If anyone, what do you have coming up next in your world? This will be coming out very shortly. And then how would people get in touch with you if they would like to, which obviously for everyone listening, we'll have Sarah's links in the episode notes as well.
Oh, yay. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram on Sales with Sarah, because that is just so much easier than trying to spell my surname. And also my book is available for pre-order now on Amazon.
It is?
Yes, it's so
exciting.
Fresh news. So yeah, you can pre-order it. It's called More Sales Please, and it is very much about helping people to find their comfort and ease with selling, for minutes a day, not longer than that, so that they can sustain their businesses. And those are probably the two main things that I would like to talk about here.
Okay, this is so beautiful. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. I cannot wait to share this episode. I am so grateful to have you in my world, and you're just the best.
Thank you so much. I feel the same. It's been amazing. What a chat. Stop laughing.
Stop laughing.